Okay, so so first, take a moment to establish this best motivation you can arouse. This Bodhichitta mind, this mind of Bodhi, thinking, I will, what we talked about last week of these two aspects of bodhicitta, aspiration and engaging, then think now that you will give rise to both these aspects of bodhicitta and think to yourself, I will liberate all beings from suffering and establish those beings on the state of perfect Buddhahood. That's the bodhicitta of aspiration. Then I think in order to liberate all sentient beings from suffering and to bring them to a state of perfect enlightenment, I now will engage in the practice of listening to the Dharma so that I will be able to contemplate what I've heard and so that I will put it into practice to the best of my ability. And that's engaging bodhicitta. So think that way for a moment. So we are going through the verses of the Bodhisattva Charya composed by the great Master Shantideva. And the text essentializes, brings together all the points that are expressed in the sutras that encompass the path of awakening, in particular the Mahayana path of Bodhisattva conduct. And the book, the text, is an outline of everything that it takes to give rise to the motivation to engage in that conduct of a bodhisattva, and by how to maintain that intention, that bodhicitta, and how to bring that bodhicitta to, how to cause that bodhicitta to flourish and bring it to fulfillment, to consummation as wisdom. And so the book is, there's 10 chapters, And the first 3 chapters are how to give rise initially to that bodhicitta, that intention to awaken to perfect Buddhahood for the sake of all mother beings. And then the 4th, 5th, and 6th chapters are all those factors that it takes to maintain the integrity of that bodhicitta that has arisen. Namely, carefulness, introspection, and patience. And then the 7th, 8th, and 9th chapters, the final 3 chapters, are how to bring that bodhicitta to fruition through diligence, concentration or meditation, and then wisdom. And the 10th chapter is the dedication of the merit. So right now we are in the 1st chapter, which is called the chapter that explains the benefits of bodhicitta. And we discussed several factors that, taken individually, these verses, sometimes individually or in 2 or 3 verses are joined together. They are topics for contemplation. We need to contemplate these things, such as even right at the beginning of the main body of the text is verse number 4, where the precious human birth, all the factors that become the basis for bodhicitta to give rise. We need to contemplate what those factors are of the precious human birth. And then and so on. I don't want to go too far. Then there was this series of examples that were given. Each one of those examples we should consider and think what that example brings out as far as the benefits and excellence of bodhicitta. And then Shantideva went on now to talk about this bodhicitta and its twofold aspect, or we could say threefold aspect. The bodhicitta of, we might say, conventional or ordinary plain bodhicitta, which is, as I mentioned earlier, can be talked about as being twofold: the bodhicitta of aspiration and the bodhicitta of engaging. And then the third bodhicitta is the subtle bodhicitta. The subtle bodhicitta, also called absolute bodhicitta. It's subtle because it's discovered or revealed or recognized through intuitive introspection or intuitive meditation. Conventional bodhicitta, aspiration and engaging bodhicitta, is developed or gives rise we'll get to that, actually. And so then he went on to compare the two and explain how, or mention how this wishing bodhicitta, this wish for all beings to attain enlightenment, or even wish for one's own enlightenment, the merit of that will ensure one's own good place in samsara, but it won't lead to the exhaustion of the suffering of samsara. It's only through engaging bodhicitta that one actually enters into the path of liberation from the causes of samsara. I believe we are on verse 20. And this section, these verses are how to think of the benefits, how the benefits are, you could say, proven. And verse 20 says, this the Tathagata in the Sutra Sabahu requested, said with reasoned argument for those inclined to lesser paths. Okay, I think there's a footnote there that gives you the name of the sutra. It's basically the sutra here, and why he's giving a sutra here is because in the previous verses, last session I mentioned about karma and merit and the sort of inexhaustible and continual flow of merit or virtue that comes through the engaging and the engaging bodhicitta. And because the connection between causes and effects, between causes and their effects, this connection is very, what would be inscrutable. And it's well known. I mean, it says that only a perfectly enlightened being can actually see the relationship between causes and effects. So there's really no logic that we can apply to prove or ascertain that this causes that. So what Shantideva is introducing here is the sutra to prove it. Because for Buddhists, well, yeah, there's three different means to come to what would we say, truth or veracity. You know, what is valid knowledge? And one is that that it corresponds to our perception, which with karma, say, unlike impermanence and suffering, like impermanence we can see how things are impermanent, sometimes right before our eyes. You know, an ice cube is impermanent, and you can watch it express that impermanent nature. And so, so one means of valid understanding is through our perception. We can validate that something is hot by our tactile perception. And there's certain consensus, collective consensus perceptions that that operate to also prove that something is able to be discussed. Like, maybe not everyone would know what this is, but let's say more than 9 out of 10 of you probably know what this is. Through your perception, you can see it has a name, Vajra. And we can all agree that this is a Vajra, therefore we can discuss. Okay, the Vajra has this part, it's made of this has 5 spokes and so forth. So based on our collective, on agreed upon perception, we can then discuss it. If somebody thinks it's an orange or a peach, then it's going to be difficult to discuss a Vajra. So one means of knowledge is this perception. It has to match. The second way that we can come to a valid means of cognition, it's called, is by inference. We can infer from various factors that we can know something, like we can know that there is fire if we see smoke, that one. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So the second means. And we do that. It's not a Buddhist. Buddhists don't own that, those two ways of coming to know something. The third way is the words of Buddha. That's what Buddhists take as being a valid means of knowledge, when the other two, I don't want to say fail. And so that's why here he's introducing the sutra that discusses, and by the way, this sutra auspiciously has been translated just this past a few months ago. It came out, and you can look in the footnote here and get the Sanskrit title and just do a search on 84,000, the 84,000 project. And the sutra is there, and it's a very beautiful sutra. It's a sutra that is Sabahu asked the Buddha the question that began this very extensive teaching that Buddha gave. His question was something along the lines of, how does a bodhisattva engage in conduct? And so the Buddha gave an exposition, an answer, by explaining the way a bodhisattva carries out the 6 perfections. And also, what's particularly nice is how someone who aspires to be a bodhisattva carries out those, like a beginner, how a beginner would carry out those 6 perfections. And one of the nice takeaways from this sutra is that the Buddha says that the most profound practice for a bodhisattva the most profound practice is to make an aspiration to practice the 6 paramitas perfectly. So anyway, so here what Shantideva is saying is that, did I read this? So the Tathagata taught this, the benefits of bodhicitta is what he taught in this sutra that Sabahu requested. And he said with reason argument for those inclined to lesser paths, meaning that he taught this sutra in answer to Sabahu, who Sabahu is a bodhisattva, so he was requesting some teachings on his path. But also then the Buddha taught, he encouraged those who are not bodhisattvas he encouraged them by pointing out the benefits of bodhicitta to inspire and draw those who were only interested in their own personal peace, and to inspire them to enter into the path of the bodhicitta. And so that's what Shantideva is getting at there. The next verse says, if with kindly generosity one merely has the wish to soothe the aching heads of other beings, such merit knows no bounds. So these two verses, 21 and 22, they go together. And this verse 21 is the beginning of specifically the benefits of bodhicitta and aspiration bodhicitta, aspiring bodhicitta, the benefits of aspiring bodhicitta, or what he's talking about here. And then later on, he talks about the benefits of engaging bodhicitta specifically. And so here he's saying that somebody who has through compassion, wants to maybe administer medicine or food or clothing or some act of generosity, just to a few or some people, one or a few people, then that person, because of the power of his love and compassion and kindness, and has created a great amount of merit. Here it says, merely has the wish to do that. You accumulate merit, a great amount of merit, even if what you do is ineffectual, or if it never really gets off the ground. That merit is, the merit of that aspiration bodhicitta is such that it accumulates a great amount of merit. It's very virtuous. I've been thinking, like, out of, when we read so many things about, because of the sophistication of our communication, we just hear about everything, and mostly it has to do with various forms of pain and suffering. And if we respond to that by really wishing that we could, if only I could give everyone clean water in the world, if only I could take care of all the abandoned children in the world, if only I could feed this, this wish that has this compassionate and kind generosity to it. Just the wish itself creates the huge power of virtue. Then, verse 22 says, then no need to speak then of the wish to drive away the endless pain of each and every living being, bringing them unbounded excellence. So now he says, no, that doesn't even, like, we don't even have to then, since this has to do with sort of proving the benefit, it says it proves that then a bodhisattva has the wish to drive the endless pain, the deep uproot the causes of pain, the causes of suffering in the minds of all sentient beings, not only in this life, relieving the pain of all beings in this life, but in all future lives, and leading them out of that suffering, the causes of suffering. And not only just some population, but beings who are as numerous as space is vast. In other words, all the beings whose numbers exceed the vastness of space, and bringing them unbounded excellence, not only immediate, temporary help and relief, but the unbounded excellence of perfect enlightenment. That's the aspiration, the bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas. So you think about that, read that, and then contemplate that. Then 23, it says, could our father or our mother ever have so generous a wish? Do the very gods, the rishis, even Brahma, harbor such benevolence as this? For even in the past, they never even in their dreams wished something like this even for themselves. How could they do so for another's sake? So now he's talking about, again, the difference between bodhicitta of the a bodhisattva's mind, and here particularly father or mother. And so our parents here, he says those, because those are typically, they are the ones who care most about you, the individual. It says father or mother, meaning the child of the child thinks that the father and mother, they're the most kind. But they usually are only interested in your present life. And they have an attachment. And their kindness and their benefiting and helping you and moving you along in your life is there's a lot of hope and fear involved in that, and other forms of attachment. And it's apparent, it's the numbers are limited, 1, 2, 5 children. So it doesn't compare to the bodhisattva aspiration for beings. And then their wishes is, their wish for their children is usually something to do with wealth, fame, these kinds of worldly signposts of success. Then to the very gods, here by gods here he means those who are clairvoyant. Gods have this power of clairvoyance, so you would think that they would be able to see the benefits of bodhicitta. Or the rishis. The rishis are those great like saints who have great knowledge, and these are of course Shantideva was an Indian man, a man of India, and so he's using his reference there for the rishis. The rishis are the Vedic, kind of the Vedic super scholars of the Vedas. They're almost kind of like the immortals kind of idea. They're those. They have the super knowledge, but they don't have bodhicitta. And even Brahma harbors such benevolence as this. Brahma means here, Brahma is it's kind of like the king of the gods, the form gods. And he has love and compassion, joy and equanimity. That's why in some practices of the love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, they're called the 4 Brahma Viharas. The Brahma Vihara means sort of the abiding place of Brahma. But Brahma's love and compassion, joy, and equanimity extends to his realm. Those four Brahma Viharas are not what in Mahayana are referred to as four immeasurable attitudes. The 4 Brahma Viharas they're not founded on renunciation or on bodhicitta or on this the view of shunyata or that deep wisdom of non-self. So when we think of these 4 Brahma Viharas, just as a footnote here, we should really think in terms of the 4 immeasurables as being a mind that's directed towards immeasurable space. So in any event, so even these that are sort of the pinnacle of samsaric wisdom and power, the benevolence, and even those, they're not thinking in terms of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. They don't even think about that for themselves, gods, rishis, so forth. So how would they even value this bodhicitta, this jewel of the mind? How would they even value that for another's sake? So then the next verse says, this aim to bring about the benefit of beings, a benefit that others wish not even for themselves, in reference to the previous verse. This noble jewel-like state of mind arises truly wondrous, never seen before. So this jewel-like state of mind, bodhicitta is the most noble of all thoughts. There's no thought that you could come up with that is more noble than bodhicitta. And it's the thought is noble, and the attitude, that attitude of bodhicitta is the most noble of attitudes. And it arises. It says it's never, a truly wondrous, never seen before. It hasn't been experienced before. It comes through certain conditions, this bodhicitta. Wait a minute. It comes about through the power of an individual. The example or the charisma or the teachings or something that has to do with another person. Like the stories of the Buddhas of the past who kids, who saw this Buddha walking and just made an aspiration at that time, like, oh, I wish I could be like him, like that kind of idea. This is through an individual. This is actually, anyway, another way that it arises is by hearing the Mahayana teachings. Say, like here we're doing here. Hearing the teachings, and then it begins to cook in your mind, in your heart, and come. And also, it comes the root. It's called it arises through the root. The root means that in your previous past lives, you've encountered and given rise to and trained somewhat in Bodhichitta. So you have this Mahayana root. It's called the Mahayana root. It's almost like the way that Gampopa discusses the Tathagata Garbha as being people beings are divided up into families. And there's the Mahayana family and the Hinayana family and the cutoff family. So this kind of idea is that through your past relationship with the teachings, it comes to you. You're one of those kind of people who are sensitive to the suffering of others and have some sort of either vague or clear sense of wanting to awaken from your mind. This is called that it rises through the root because of the root. The other one is the cause. And here the cause for giving rise to bodhicitta is called compassion. If training in compassion can develop into the arising of bodhicitta, as also the case with becoming very accustomed to and in virtuous conduct. Virtuous conduct will eventually elicit bodhicitta. And this virtuous conduct and compassion and the root and the cause. The root is a Mahayana family, and the root of compassion. These four are said to be the stable. They're stable factors that give rise to bodhicitta. Bodhicitta that gives rise because of a person, that's called unstable. But people change, and so you can't just rely on being inspired by a person. You can be inspired by a person, then you need to do the work. And the other one is studying Mahayana scriptures. Did I mention that? I don't know, but studying the Mahayana scriptures. So this Mahayana scriptures, compassion, virtuous conduct, and the compassion, those are, and your proclivity to the Mahayana, like those are stable factors of this is all, this jewel-like state of mind arises truly wondrous, never seen before. This is a commentary on that line. So those are important points to reflect on, because you would want to know, once you begin to appreciate the benefits of bodhicittas, how does it come about? Then 26. Oh. This pain-dispelling draft, this cause of joy for those who wander through the world, this precious attitude, this jewel of mind, how shall we calculate its merit? So this pain-dispelling draft is cause of joy, meaning bodhicitta. That is the draft. And bodhicitta is the cause of joy for those who wander through the world. I see there's a footnote there. I think the footnote has to do with the Tibetan word for a sentient being is a droa, and a droa is simply the verb to go. And in Tibetan, beings are called goers. Yes, goers. So you can, at the end of the day, you can think back and say, oh, I must be a sentient being. I've been going all day. So this, it's the bodhicitta here. He's saying it's the cause of every joy for those who spend their days going, who wander through the world. This precious attitude, this jewel of mind, how shall we calculate its merit? In other words, the bodhicitta is incalculable, immeasurable. It's immeasurable because, and here you can, when you think about this, think about it from the point of view of how we were talking about karma and the complete maturation of an act and all the different elements that go, the factors that contribute to the fruition of an act and so forth. Think about karma. Matter of fact, think about karma a lot when you're reviewing and contemplating this. But our understanding of karma, if we apply it, we need to apply it to bodhicitta. And it's not just a doctrine that you're supposed to believe that bodhicitta has all these benefits. That's not, Buddha never taught in that way. He always taught in such a way that you had to prove it for yourself. And like it says in the early verses, the Buddhists have always come up with only the greatest thing to strive for is bodhicitta. And so Shantideva has been taking that as kind of the benchmark and then elaborating on all the other various ways that we, through our own contemplation and logic and reasoning, can deepen our appreciation of bodhicitta and what benefit it has. Because it looks like Shantideva is expecting us to get into it for the rest of our life. And then some. Until we're enlightened. There won't be any other more effective means to that end than bodhicitta. So it's important then in the beginning, when we've just got so many choices of what we're going to do, what kind of attitude we're going to have, what kind of thinking we're going to do, what we're going to believe in, and so forth and so on. That we really need to narrow it down, not through like a doctrine, being more and more sectarian and doctrinaire about it, but through your own examination, using your own reasoning and the advice of Shantideva as your teacher, who was a real bodhisattva. And bodhisattvas don't deceive. So the merit of this bodhicitta being incalculable, why is it immeasurable? Incalculatable. No. Anyway, measureless. Can't calculate its benefit, its merit, because it's space is measureless. And wherever there's space, there are sentient beings. So sentient beings are measureless. And wherever there's sentient beings, there are kleshas. There are, there's suffering. Wherever there's sentient beings, there's suffering. You get in your rocket ship and you go way out into space. And if you find a little group of sentient beings there, they're going to be jealous. They're going to have pride. They're going to have aggression. They're going to have desire and attachment. All these factors that affect a being that has a mind that has not yet awakened to the nature of that mind. It just comes with it. It's called the spontaneously arising ignorance. And so space is measureless, beings are measureless, suffering is measureless, and the qualities of Buddha are measureless. Buddha here being the goal of bodhicitta, the culmination of bodhicitta. The object of bodhicitta is sentient beings. The object of bodhicitta is the suffering of sentient beings, so forth. So this all goes to show how bodhicitta is not finite in its effectiveness. It's not like a pill or a stopgap measure or something to get over a bad patch. Practice bodhicitta and then things will get better and then you won't be stricken with such grief anymore. It's not like that. Bodhicitta is the cause of joy to sentient beings. That we need to get in our heads. Okay, now, (27) says, if the simple thought to be of help to others exceeds in worth the worship of the Buddhas, what need is there to speak of actual deeds that bring about the weal and benefit of beings? So now he's moving from the previous 6 verses that were regarding the benefits of aspiration bodhicitta. Now he's moving into engaging bodhicitta. So here he says engaging bodhicitta or aspiration bodhicitta relates to the first two 2 points, the first 2 lines of verse 27. If the simple thought to be of help, the thought to be of help to others, that's aspiration, bodhicitta. That means the simple thought to be of help to others implies a loving concern, a loving mind, a kind mind. That exceeds the worship of the Buddhas. Many places in the sutras, the Buddha, it's a repeating theme, sometimes going on for pages, describing all the jewels and all the offerings made to all the Buddhas of the 3 times. If you, all these very elaborate descriptions of offerings made, measureless offerings made to all the Buddhas, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges, and for as many kalpas, make offerings to the Buddhas, that all the merit, or he would say, that person would accumulate a lot of merit, wouldn't he, Shariputra? Wouldn't a person gain a lot of merit? Yes, he would. Yes, he certainly would gain a lot of merit from that. He says, well, just to have a kind thought for others has more merit. That's what Shantideva is synthesizing here. That aspiration exceeds in worth the worship of the Buddhas. And so then, what need is there to speak of actual deeds that bring about the weal and benefit of being? So now he's talking about the difference in merit between aspiration bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, active bodhicitta. But the actual, what need is there to speak of actual deeds, meaning the conduct of the bodhisattva, a conduct that a bodhisattva carries out in the form of the paramitas, generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, meditation, and wisdom, the paramitas, with the aspiration bodhicitta. Like we said before, that aspiration bodhicitta is not it's not something that you discard when you get up and go somewhere. So the 6 paramitas, if just wishing to be helpful is more meritorious than worshiping the Buddhas for thousands of years, then how much more so is it when you actually do engage in an action out of compassion? So what he's talking about here also is merit, the accumulation of merit, because that's basically what a bodhisattva, the bodhisattva path is one of accumulating or gathering or creating a trajectory involving virtue that is meritorious. So the main, and like we touched on last session, the main point here is this, is the mind that wishes and the mind that then engages. The mind, it's an inner, like a Buddha taught inner practice. Any outer any outer teachings or morality or so forth were all really to nurture and protect one's inner practice. And so that's what we need to develop, is this inner practice. So in verse 28 says, for beings long to free themselves from misery, but misery itself they follow and pursue. They long for joy, but in their ignorance destroy it as they would their foe. Okay, so so this is the situation for beings. Beings, there's a kind of a metaphysical reason why we want to be happy. Even if people don't think they want to be happy, they'd rather really pursue a path of misery. It's really, that's what they think is going to make them happy if they continue to just do things that make them miserable. So this thrust towards happiness it's got something to do with our the blissful quality of our Buddha nature that is presently obscured. And that blissful quality kind of snakes through or filters through those obscurations. Fundamentally, the obscuration of ignorance, which gives rise to duality, and all of its problems come from. But that already perfected, or that already perfect bliss of our mind's nature that we're not presently aware of, is kind of informs our dualistic framework by driving us towards replicating in some unknown fashion happiness, bliss. Like it would be blissful, like to get paid a lot of money for hardly doing any work. So beings, they want to be happy. All beings, not just people, all beings. Now, there's thoughts that there's living beings living on the clouds that surround Venus. They've discovered some compound or element in those clouds that requires some life form to exist. Phosphine or something, I think. But anyway, so now we already know that there's beings sort of hanging on the walls of the core of the earth. But everyone wants to be happy, but because of not being awake to their true nature, instead, beings are controlled by, or the happiness of beings is controlled by their ignorance of how to achieve it. Obviously, or not obviously, but instinctually, it would be, if you see something that would make you happy, then grab it. But because we want to be free of misery, poverty, short life, sickness, all the other things, cold, because our suffering is caused by non-virtue, killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, just deceiving, abusive speech, gossip, divisive speech, ill will, envy, wrong view, anything, those sort of kind of big categories of actions produce the karmic effect of some kind of unsatisfactoriness that is somehow interdependent with what it took to do it, what it took to kill, what it took to steal, and so forth. Like we talked about before, all those 5 factors that make up a completed act, which that should be a very valuable piece of information to us, knowing what those 5 factors are. And particularly how the driving force of that action, the motivation of that action, is the most dominant cause for the effect, for the fruition of that act. Which, when we think in terms of wishing bodhicitta, aspiration bodhicitta, that's one of the factors to consider, is having the motivation to benefit beings is the main factor as to the effect of that wish, not how many bottles of water you manage to ship around the world. The act itself is kind of small potatoes compared to the power of the aspiration. And so the same thing goes for non-virtue. So because of ignorance, and ignorance here, he's referring to not knowing what produces happiness and what produces suffering, and just going on by the seat of your pants. That it's as if, even though people want to be happy and they act in such a contradictory way to achieve that happiness, it's as if happiness is their enemy. They treat happiness like an enemy if you look at how they go about trying to achieve it. Interesting way of putting it here. They destroy happiness as they would their foe. I'm sure you can relate this. That's what makes the tears stream down the face of the bodhisattvas, is when they see beings who want to be happy and act in completely counterproductive ways to become happy. It's as if that's what you want, why are you destroying it? Okay, then, so that's verse 28. Then 29, but those who fill with bliss all beings destitute of joy, who cut all pain and suffering away from those weighed down with misery, who drive away the darkness of their ignorance. What virtue could be matched with theirs? What friend could be compared to them? What merit is there similar to this? Okay. I think we'll end with that. So those who fill with bliss, meaning that both temporary happiness and ultimate happiness or ultimate bliss. There's different kinds of bliss. There's a ordinary bliss, like samsaric bliss, kind of fleeting. And then there's the bliss of arhat, like those who achieve the, individual liberation by sort of drying up the kleshas, which are the cause of birth and samsara, then the peace of that peace has a bliss to it. Just like a good meditation, good, like say shamatha meditation, then there's a bliss to it. And the arhat, of course, that the arhat has it's uninterrupted bliss, but it's not the bliss. Then there's the bliss of the bodhisattvas, the exalted bodhisattvas, and the Buddha. And so those are incomparable with the ordinary bliss or the bliss of the arhat or pratyeka Buddha or the Shravakas. So here he's talking about this, those who drive away, where are we? Those who fill one with bliss, to fill all beings destitute of joy. In other words, with love, they bring happiness to those who are destitute of joy. That means, that is to say, that destitute here means that there is no causes for happiness. A being has no cause for happiness. And so the Bodhisattva brings with love the causes for happiness to beings such as that. And they cut suffering with compassion. They bring joy and happiness with their love, and they sever the roots of suffering with their compassion. Cut all pain and suffering away, with compassion from those weighed down with misery. And then the next verse says, who drive away the darkness of their ignorance. So that's the third quality of bodhicitta, or of engaging bodhicitta, active bodhicitta. It's the quality of love, quality of compassion, and the quality that cuts or drives away ignorance, that is to say, wisdom. Wisdom, sharab, prajna. Like Khandro introduced last week, wisdom. Let's call it. We call it in our Pema Publishing. What would that be? Our lexicon or something? We call the prajna sublime knowing. Sharab. Sharab is Tibetan, and prajna is Sanskrit. Okay, but those are the three qualities of engaging bodhicitta. In other words, you engage with love, with compassion, with wisdom. To bring joy with love, to cut suffering with compassion, and to overcome ignorance. Here, ignorance specifically refers to ignorance in beings who don't know what to do in order to be happy. They're ignorant of of karma, what to accept, what to engage in, and what to avoid, what to reject, as far as physical, verbal, and mental actions, conduct. So bodhicitta, in a bodhisattva's bodhicitta engages in that fashion with those three factors, or what could be seen as having those three components. What virtue could be matched with theirs? So what could be more powerful? What is more powerful? What virtue has more strength than bodhicitta? What friend could be compared to them? The one who has love and compassion and wisdom and engages with that into the lives of sentient beings. You know, who could be those who show the path, those who show that path? Like who could be compared to them as a friend? And what merit is there similar to this? So merit here and on the Bodhisattva training path of accumulating merit, conceptual merit, and non-conceptual merit. Merit is something that that increases. Merit has the power to increase virtue, and correspondingly the happiness that comes from virtue. So it has the power to increase virtuous actions, and the result of virtuous actions are also empowered further by merit. And merit also decreases suffering and non-virtue, which is the cause of suffering. So if we want happiness, then we need to know about merit and its relationship to wholesome actions, virtue, and how it relates to non-virtue. Because what this should be stimulating our interest in is what will benefit, or what benefits our mind most. What benefits our mind most is what has the most merit. What benefits our mind most is what has the most merit. And so here, he's saying that engaging bodhicitta, supported by aspiration bodhicitta, expressed a conduct that's expressed through that engaging bodhicitta of imbued with the love, compassion, and wisdom, is what is the most meritorious undertaking we can do for our mind. And so, of course, these are things we should study and contemplate and basically plant these thoughts in our mind to make them benefit, so to have them benefit. Just intellectually understanding these things and thinking that it's such a great idea, bodhicitta being a real bodhicitta, like a booster. I'm a real booster of bodhicitta. I really think bodhicitta is like super great, but not really meditating on bodhicitta, doing it. Then the intellectual, and this I'm just repeating the commentary to this at this point. Kempo Kempel says, "Oh, we just can't have an intellectual understanding of bodhicitta, but it's important to know what the benefits of bodhicitta are, as he's discussed here." This is kind of the end of that theme. But so it's really important to again and again reflect and read and read and reflect again and dig into these so that we understand the benefits of it, and by understanding the benefits of it, maybe karmically, we will be more interested in it. More interested in it. And if we're more interested in it, then we'll be more likely to do it. And then when we do it, we'll begin to actually feel the benefits of it and develop what we need in the Bodhisattva path, which is confidence and courage. Courage. Bodhicitta or Bodhisattva means a courageous being. Bodhicitta means a courageous mind. It's courageous. Conduct with love and compassion and wisdom takes courage, especially during the degenerate age. The trend, the flow, the rivers of the kleshas are powerful, like a quicksand. So it takes courage to develop bodhicitta, to value merit as a component of aspiration bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. And that's not even including actually benefiting beings through action, through conduct. So we need to increase our interest in it, and not just leave it as a kind of intellectual understanding, which we need first. Okay, so that takes us to the end of verse 30. And so then the next section is about sort of a distinguishing between a bodhisattva and an ordinary person. So we'll take that up at the next session, and because that's only a short time. Then next session I'll finish this first chapter. Hopefully, and then we'll be able to have time for questions and answers. So if you have a question, and you have 2 weeks to come up with a question, okay? Got 2 weeks and 36 verses, well, 35 verses, 30 verses. So something must be bugging you about one or another of those, you know. So come up with a question if you like, no pressure. And next week we'll just do these last 6 verses, and then that'll be a time to tie it up with any loose ends that you have about questions, okay? Okay, so I would like to just sit and take it easy for a minute. So please, if you have time, before we dedicate the merit, and do that, just sit and abide, very open, spacious. Okay, so then let us transfer this virtue and merit of listening to the teachings. I transfer my whatever virtue I might have gained by teaching this topic. I feel very virtuous right now. I must dedicate this because I know in 5 minutes afterwards it'll be gone. So I want to dedicate it right now. See? Okay. All the virtue of this practice and all that is gathered throughout the 3 times, I dedicate to all beings without exception so that they may attain Buddhahood. Following and emulating the omniscient and courageous Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra, I completely dedicate all virtue. Since dedicating merit is praised as supreme by victorious ones of the 3 times, I completely dedicate these roots of virtue for the sake of practicing excellent conduct. Now these last 2 are aspirations. May the teachings of Lord Buddha, the only source of benefit and happiness, long remain in this world. May the lives of those who uphold these teachings be as stable as a victory banner. Supreme Bodhichitta is so very precious. Where it has not yet arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but evermore grow and flourish. Supreme Bodhichitta is so very precious. Where it has not yet arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but evermore grow and flourish. Supreme Bodhichitta is so very precious. Where it has not yet arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but evermore grow and flourish. Okay. Thank you. Be well. See you next time.